relax until it's the right moment and not spend unnecessary energy. But she's got the form at the moment, she's got the condition, so she'll feel that it's not taking too much out of her. And I think we'll still, despite the fact that she has a nose in the wind and she wants to be up there checking things out and be in control of the moves that are happening, I think we'll see her make it to the finish with the best climbers today.
Another water bottle hitting the deck, unfortunately, for one of those Great Britain riders. As we just caught a glimpse of Annabelle Fisher from Jaden, well-type Yorkshire team. Did themselves proud yesterday on the road with that brilliant ride from young Pfeiffer Georgie, just 17 years of age. And still a rider who we haven't seen her for a while, but assuming she's still in this big peloton, still in with a shout of winning that Queen of the Mountains jersey outright. Shares leadership with Danny Rowe, the Queen of the Mountains competition at the moment on the road.
Well, they've all safely made it out of the feed zone. I thought that was quite interesting yesterday, how the riders were feeding on the left, because obviously in Europe they feed on the right. And there's some of these girls who race every single weekend and constantly in Europe, always feeding on the right. It can be quite different and funny to take a bottle from the left, but it looked like quite a lot of girls managed to do that then. But you can see a few putting their hands up, wanting to go back to the car. Maybe they were unable to take a bottle and they need to go back, or they simply just want to speak to the sports director. But yeah, certainly I can imagine that being quite difficult to change your habit of taking a bottle with your right hand.
Just a little correction to what I just said. Of course, Pfeiffer Georgie shares leadership in the Queen of the Mountains competition, not with Danny Rowe, but with Nikki Juniper, who stole 4 points, won 4 points, didn't steal them at all, at the Côtes de Blacker Hill, straight away from the gun at Barnsley.
Well, fantastic riding from the two out in front. They've only got 27 seconds and the peloton very much have things under control, but they've done a superb effort to get out there. And when Manon Lloyd joined over there to Katia Ragusa, it just added a little bit more motivation to stay out there a little bit longer.
Natalie van Gogh, yesterday's breakaway rider, and the reason that they have yellow numbers on their back is because Park Hotel Falkenberg are leading the team classification going into the final stage of the Women's Tour de Yorkshire.
We've seen on a few occasions the riders that were the lead riders yesterday being on bottle duty today go back and get bottles for their teammates that designated climbers for the day. We saw Kirsten Wild of Wiggle High Five back at the team car grabbing bottles after that feed. They must have missed a few, and fill up with bottles and take them up to the front.
It was a great shot from above when you can see all the different jerseys, brilliant. All the different colours.
Brilliant.
So many different types of cycling kit.
Well, they're stretching out their lead now, aren't they? 57.3k to go, 12.3 kilometres to go until the intermediate sprint, and now they've got 1 minute and 18 seconds. And Manon Lloyd started the day on 10 seconds deficit, so exactly the same time in the general classification as Katia Ragusa. 9 places, though, better off in the general classification than Katia Ragusa. So that puts Manon Lloyd from Trek Drops at the moment into the virtual race lead.
Well, one rider that certainly will know her strength is Danny Rowe, because at the Commonwealth Games, Danny Rowe had the support of Manon Lloyd in the early stage of the races, just to keep Danny in position. So often riders towards the end of the race, if their teammates have dropped out early in the race, they tend to forget the support that they had from those riders, but not Danny Rowe. She's mentioned Manon Lloyd was a key part of that bronze medal ride she had at the Commonwealth Games. Peloton very relaxed here at the front. We can see Canyon Schramm. They've been controlling things along with Boels Dolmans for most of today's stage.
Just going back, Lucy, to what you were saying about feed zones being on the left in the UK, I can recall, it must have been about 10 years ago, working on the Tour of Britain, the other stage race, obviously, in the UK, and I think it was the first participation of Europe car ever in this country, an exclusively French team, basically. And at the sole feed zone on really quite a long, difficult stage, I think it was up in the Lake District somewhere, they all lined up on the front of the bunch towards the feed zone on the right-hand side of the roads, and their Swannies were standing on the left. And they all missed lunch that day, and half of them were spat out the back towards the end.
I can imagine, even if you've been told before feeding will be on the left, once you're in the race and, you know, focusing on actually racing, it's just a habit. You know, you go to the feed zone, you can see which kilometre the feed zone is at, and then you just go to the right, because if you do it every single day, every time you're racing, you always go to the right. It's just so hard to be able to change that. But yeah, if it's a long stage, then it's really important to be able to get a bottle. So thankfully you do have the ability to go back to the team car in case you do miss a bottle from the side of the road.
Cowbells, Yorkshire exhortations in their ears. It's a little bit damp out there, I must say. It's dry where we are at the Cow and Calf, but it looks a bit of moisture might have just fallen on the road where they are now. Just heading north from Garforth towards Scholes. 56.1k, so 11 kilometres to go until the intermediate sprints. Those two riders out front have got an advantage. Well, it's disappeared off our screens now, but last time we saw it was over 1 minute. That would leave, if that's the case, it's going to be quite difficult necessarily to pull that back in time for the intermediate sprint if they are motivated to do that. And you wonder whether they are. I mean, the only kind of carrot or bonus available would be 1 second. Is that worth scrapping over? It's difficult, that, isn't it, Rochelle? If there were 3 seconds, you'd think, well, they'll probably bring us back and have another little battle. But 1 second for third place, it's less obvious, isn't it?
There may be some riders that are up there looking for that 1 second. You never know what's going to happen in the final of a race, that's the thing. But it will take a lot of effort to try and gain that 1 second with a sprint of riders so strong in the peloton. So it'll be interesting to see which riders do go for it and which don't. We might tend to see a few of the pure sprinters going just to take those points away from potential GC riders moving into that, just gaining that 1 second. So
normally you would think 1 second maybe they wouldn't hotly contest the sprint, but yesterday it was incredible. It was like a lead out for a finish of a race, just going for that 1 second. And yeah, I think they might do it again now. Certainly the British team trying to help Danny Rowe get them valuable seconds, because she's shown she's been keen to take as many seconds as possible this whole race.
Well, it looks like that's Chantal Black there in the World Championship jersey. She's also the national champion of the Netherlands. It can, of course, only wear one jersey, which trumps the national champs jersey, the World Championship stripes. I thought Chantal Black was a very quiet achiever until she won that World Championship jersey. Not that many people recognised how many races she had actually won. It's just one of those names that you recognise as a domestique for all the work that she does for a team, but when she has an opportunity, she certainly has won quite a few big bike races, and now the world champion in the peloton.
Yeah, I often think that about Chantal. I raced on a team with her for a few years, and she is one of the hardest working domestiques. And in her own right, she could win most of those races herself, but she never, you know, lets her own ambitions take over. If she's the worker for the day, then she works. So when I saw her win the World Championships, I was very, very pleased. She's a deserving winner, and yeah, she's still won races this year already in the jersey, which was great to see in Amstel Gold.
Attacks flying off the front of the bunch now. Got very active again. Looked like Alice Barnes was in that little move from Canyon Tram, one of the Great Britain riders. Also involved, High-Tech Products, one of the teams on the offensive. And so too is the Belgian team, Ex-Belza Foot Logics. Their rider right on the front, Ali Cipollini, have got a rider in this move. Bill Stallman's trying to shut things down, along with a rider from Trek Drops and Sunweb. So it's they're trying to shut it down. FDJ also, oh no, it's a Great Britain jersey, isn't it? In that little quintet of riders on the offensive. And still, there's Danny Rowe now trying to get across. No teammates with her. Very isolated. She's got one teammate up the road from Great Britain. This young rider here in this group of, what, 7, 8 riders who have a little bit of advantage over the group of favourites. Alice Barnes is in this selection.
Well, you can see Sunweb have a rider in this move, but they're also the team that are chasing this down, so they're not so confident in their rider that's in the break there, because Lisa Brennauer, who is a very strong climber and has actually won the Women's Tour of Britain, she's in there, and I think a lot of the other big teams won't be so happy about that.
Far from it. I think Bastianelli might be in there as well, the Ali Cipollini rider. It looked like it was her. So too is Hannah Payton from Trek Drops. She is their rider represented in this powerfully sized group. That's, what, 11 riders?
With a lot of represented teams, so the problem is here, who does all the chasing?
Yeah.
It has to be somebody very committed, and yeah, we can see Sunweb on the front, even though they have a rider up there. This is a dangerous, dangerous move.
I think this is a clear indication that Sunweb are riding for Ellen van Dijk today, because she's the rider of Sunweb we've not seen do much yet, and this break certainly isn't ideal, especially because Lucy Brenner is in there. I think if she was not in that move, then there would be a chance of this breakaway moving away, but a very strong reaction from the team Sunweb. So Bowles obviously happy with their rider in the break. Wiggle High Five obviously happy. Bastianelli can climb quite well for now, what you call nearly a pure sprinter, but if we go back many years ago, she won her World Championship on a very tough circuit as a climber.
Wiggle High Five, I think, have Yonamini working at the front of what remains of the peloton there. Unless that's another jersey, difficult to see from that distance.
I'd be very surprised if it was Yonamini. It looks like a white and red jersey.
Sarah
but
Stone and this rider leading the way now at the front. So she's a clear sprinter, and I think they don't want this group to go, do they?
Not at all. That was a very, very dangerous little moment in the race, and continues to be. They haven't quite shut it down yet, because there are a number of potential winners there. Anna Plichter, we think, is the Bolts Dolmans rider in the orange in that little group, along with Alice Barnes, Bastianelli. This group that we're looking at, one of the riders from Great Britain. That's Plichter in the orange.
Well, Anna Plichter can climb extremely well. I remember her name from the Rio Olympics.
That was a climber's course, wasn't it?
Climbing with the best, so that's a rider that would have been happy with that breakaway, but all looks like it's coming together. But a lot of riders under pressure here. The race is really starting to heat up, and the pace is on. So even though this breakaway with those numbers won't probably stay away, because it's Sunweb trying to chase it down, there's a good chance that this is the break and the move that's done the damage. So if Ellen van Dijk goes across to this now of Sunweb, they'll all of a sudden be very happy with this move.
Yeah, they seem to be the only team that's really, really trying to bring this back now. So like you say, Rochelle, if one of those Sunweb riders like Ellen van Dijk can jump across, then this could actually stay away, but it looks to be coming back now. And Sarah Stonen on the front there, just pushing a little bit too hard, realising she's opened up a gap and she doesn't want to be going solo.
Nikki Juniper's got across as well from the eponymous NGC Nikki Juniper team in those red jerseys. Don't quite know what to say about that.
Creative.
I think I'd like to be in the standing up and turning round in a circle roll rather than the lying on the damp grass roll.
I'd quite like to go to that school if that's what we get to do on a
True, it's better
Friday
than geography
afternoon.
class, isn't it? Look at that time gap, though, to the two leaders, Manon Lloyd and Katja Ragusa. Only 10 seconds now, and that's to the chase group. Big chase group. Dangerous chase group. And that would be if that group gets across to these two, which surely they will, as she goes on the attack now.
Well, just wanting to pick up those points, but Manon Lloyd's been very impressive ride by her today.
Don't forget that, well, it looks like it might have come back together again in the background. So Manon Lloyd has stretched things out now, seeing the writing on the wall. Katja Ragusa, quite understandably, who's been out on her own much, much longer, shakes her head, sits up. She's lost the wheel of Manon Lloyd, and she resigns herself to the inevitable catch, and that peloton has come back together again. So interesting to know which teams were doing all the work to bring that back. Ellen van Dijk looked like she might well have been involved in dragging that back, and she's certainly the kind of rider from Sunweb who could have done that almost single-handedly. But that was a really delicate moment in the race, 50 kilometres from home, when it could have been a decisive move going up the road. As things stand, that is all got back together again, and that'll only leave Manon Lloyd from Trek drops out on her own. Ragusa is caught. Good day out for her, though. She'll have learnt a lot from that and done her team proud. Now there are only 8 seconds separating the front of the race from this marauding peloton. 50.6 kilometres to go, so just under 6 kilometres until an intermediate sprint. And we know the score now, because with that we have the possibility of getting yourself bonus seconds. And watch out in particular for Danny Rowe. She has done nothing wrong so far for 1.5 stages of the Tour de Yorkshire. Can she score again at the intermediate sprint just up the road?